Canadian leaders have just signed a deal to drop barriers on interprovincial trade.
This is the largest red tape reduction in Canada's history, and it's just the beginning. Now, we've got to capture this momentum as we continue to build strong Canadian economy with free movement of all goods and services at its core.
That's British Columbia's Minister of Jobs and Economic Growth announcing the deal yesterday. Provincial and territorial trade ministers and the federal government signed off on it. The agreement will take effect next month. It applies to thousands of products, including clothes, toys, vehicles, health technology and industrial products, but it does exclude food and beverages, including alcohol and other products and services that are separately regulated. The deal could still be expanded in the future. So, will this new agreement on interprovincial trade actually deliver real economic benefits for Canada? To help us break it down, let's bring in Ryan Manucha. He is a research fellow at the C.D. Howe Institute, and he is also the author of Booze, Cigarettes, and Constitutional Dust-Ups, Canada's Quest for Interprovincial Free Trade. He joins us now from Toronto. Hi, Ryan. Thanks for being with us.
It's a privilege to be here.
Okay, so with provinces and the federal government now moving forward with removing trade barriers, what do you make of this latest move? Will it have the impact that they are certainly hoping for?
I was nervous awaiting the release of the communique coming out of yesterday because I didn't know if there was still a pulse on the internal trade file or if it was empty rhetoric. And what I came away with from my assessment is I have cautious optimism. And I'll use sort of green, yellow, and red stoplight as a way to describe it. Green, we saw this mutual recognition agreement on goods. This is something we'd only fantasized about even a year ago. Did not think it would happen this fast and this quickly. And then the other item was an update on the Memorandum of Understanding about alcohol sales, direct-to-consumer alcohol sales. It sounds as though that is indeed going ahead by May 2026. I'll go to the yellow now. We saw some backsliding on the financial services chapter. We were expecting to hear an announcement about that, and we saw nothing, which leads observers to believe that it's enduring more difficulty than previously anticipated. We're also another yellow is we're excited to see an announcement on interprovincial trucking, costing the Canadian economy $1.6 billion a year, adding 8.3% to the cost of freight rates. And it sounds as though we're on the precipice of something, but nothing was publicly disclosed yesterday.
I love this analogy because it does make it very understandable, certainly for our viewers as we try to digest this and what has taken place. What's important too, though, is of course there's removing the trade barriers. That's one part of this all, but there are still hurdles when we talk about how vast this country is. Transportation costs, for example, that's just one hurdle to consider here as this agreement continues to be implemented next month.
Certainly, and so the red is the CIT, which is the meeting that just happened in Yellowknife yesterday, is the leading political body that tackles internal trade barriers. And the one thing that I'm a little disappointed in is that it was not setting the mark far out enough, not setting the ambition level far out enough, given the geopolitical uncertainty with the United States and given Canada's absolute productivity crisis. I would have expected the needle and the ambition level to have been ratcheted up enough to sort of meet the moment. And so hopefully we can come back into 2026 with something. So that's more of my red light. For example, we usually get the date of the next agreement, the next meeting of the CIT in the communique, and we don't have that in this one. And credit to the CIT. This is the 9th time they have met this year. This is this pan-Canadian group of internal trade ministers ordinarily meets maybe once a year. There's been unprecedented collaboration and cooperation. So I do have to take credit. I do have to take what I can get from that.
You know, Ryan, I wanted to ask in terms of the impact that we might see for Canadian businesses and industries, how fast might they feel the impact of this sort of expansion, so to speak, of the Canadian economy as these barriers have been sort of chipped away at?
I'll give you an example. In the early 90s, Australia went through the same set of reforms that we're going through. And it was a huge reason why Australia saw a 2.5% permanent GDP boost by the end of the 90s. So it's going to start to sort of come out in the next few quarters, but it'll really start to pan out so in the medium term. And this is sort of part of why the ambition level needs to be at 110%, because this is something that needs to endure beyond the news cycle, beyond 2025, for there to be real change.
For now, we have certainly seen the food and alcohol exclusion be pointed to by ministers who have been signing on to this agreement. Is there any sort of, hope that in the future those sorts of regulations are something that will also be dropped, or there will be a workaround so that that can be free-flowing across the country too?
I hope so. The story of internal trade barriers are regulations that make it harder for small and medium-sized businesses and workers to be able to grow and expand, to create Canadian competitive intensity, which boosts our productivity, right? And so there is ample room for regulatory nuance to allow for small and medium-sized producers to tap into that, especially when it comes to food and value add chains in the food supply chains. And we are not the only nation in the world with subnational jurisdictions with some degree of control over food and food processes. So over time, I hope to move the needle. The fact that we have this MRA on this mutual recognition agreement on goods is an incredible first step. I do hope that there is space for small and medium-sized producers to get liberalized benefits from on the food space and certainly on the alcohol space. I would hope that we're all sitting at our docks in May 20 in the May 24 weekend, enjoying booze from another province because it was shipped directly to our doorstep, if we so wished.
Well, we'll keep watching for that. I do want to finally ask you about what the catalyst, of course, for the movement on all of this may have been, and that's the ongoing trade war with the U.S. How does this position Canada as that continues?
Yes, it's certainly catalyzed from Trump, and then credit due to Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston, who then launched into the first ever legislation, really led the charge, and then the rest of the provinces and territories and the federal government jumping up. Because this is a monumental moment, right? In Canadian history, every time we look to our internal trade, it's usually because a foreign trading power has done something to us on the trade relationship front. This stems back as early as the early 1800s to the present day. And this time we can build something that's enduring, because the change here is that the U.S. is permanently reorganizing the way of global and North American trade.
Ryan, I want to thank you for your thoughts on this today. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
That was Ryan Manucha. He is the Research Fellow at C.D. Howe Institute in Toronto. Thanks.